Hey everyone. So today I really want to talk about how to really know if it's God's voice that is speaking to you. How to really know if it's God's voice that's speaking to you. And I do want to preface this to say that this is not a Christian specific message. God is for everyone. I do have a viewpoint of someone who grew up in the church, but that's just my experience. I didn't have any control over that. So I do want to give that disclaimer before, I don't want any Christians going ham in my comments later or anything like that. This is very much just, very informed by, my environment and experiences, this and the other, all the above. So anyway, like I was saying, how to know if it is God's voice that is speaking to you. And so this is a really interesting kind of concept to me, in particular because, like I said, I grew up in the church and I was always surrounded by people who were saying, God told me this, God told me that, the Lord said this, the Lord said that. And I'm just like, I ain't hear nothing from the Lord. And I know who you are as a person, so if you heard from the Lord and I didn't, what does that mean exactly? Now, I will say that doesn't mean that, if you're a good person or, good person, bad person, whatever, God isn't speaking to certain people. No, I'm just saying that, it just struck me as very odd that people would kind of invoke God, whenever they saw it as convenient. That's what came across to me. So I was like, is God talking, God speaking to a person really a thing? And as I get older, I realize absolutely is a thing. And there are some ways that I know that God is speaking to me. And I know that it's not versus my own will and my own wants. Because I feel like that's what happened. That's actually what's happening a lot is people are just kind of trying to place some blame on their wants and desires and whatnot, and saying, oh, God told me this. It's like, but did he really? But anyway, as I was saying, how do I know that it really is God speaking to me? One of the ways that I know that it's God speaking to me is because the idea or the message I'm getting is totally left field to compared to what I actually want or desire or just my nature. Case in point, right now, I am going into a new season of my life that I very much enjoy. I love being a certified abundant master, abundant life coach. Absolutely adore it. Absolutely love it. Every single facet of it. One of the things that it does, though, obviously by default, is it puts me around a lot of people. Guess what? I'm an introvert. I score 100% on introversion on the Myers-Briggs test. I will say, though, I'm probably the most talkative introvert anybody would ever know. Thanks to my background with, Christianity. Everybody in my family is in ministry of some sort. So being long-winded is in my blood. But when it comes down to, who Bliss, if you go and meet, go back in time and meet 10-year-old Bliss and you ask her, what does she want to do? She probably just wants to read, have a slice of pizza, play some basketball, watch a movie, and read some more. It's not in my nature to really go out and mingle with people. Even, there was, when I was in college, I just kind of, kept to myself. I didn't really go to parties or anything like that. And there was no moral reason why, even though I was very much Jesus freak back then and everything. But there wasn't any moral reason in particular other than I just didn't want to go to a party. I attempted to a couple times, but I was just like, I actually just want to go back home and read something. So I say all that to say, my nature does not put me in front of people, but I know that everything I'm doing in my life right now is a God-ordained thing because it's not something I would ordinarily choose for myself. See where I'm going with this? It's something that was placed, it's a mantle that was placed on me and placed before me, and I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. But I also know that if it wasn't for this calling, I probably wouldn't do some of the things that I do. I don't, like I said, I don't feel forced to do it. I absolutely love it. But in and of itself, this is God's calling, because that, it's just, when it comes to my actual like basic nature, it's like I said, it's not something that I would just choose for myself. So that is one way that I know that it's God really saying, actually speaking into my life and leading my life and speaking to me. I just said that. I said that twice. Long day. Anyway, the other way that I know it's God speaking to me is that I am recognizing some needs in my life. But I've come to a point in which I don't necessarily want the solution. And the funny thing is, other people are also recognizing these needs in my life. And they're like, yeah, this is how you can get around these needs that you have. And I said, absolutely. But I don't want to do that anymore. Like in years past, I really pined after these solutions for some of these issues that I'm having now. And I recognize now, like, oh, okay. My kind of, my recognizing these needs popping up is God talking to me again about what he sees that is, how do I word this? Because I'm trying not to say what it actually is. If you could tell that I'm kind of dancing around the subject, that's on purpose. I'm trying to find a way to actually give you the message without telling on myself here. But essentially, me recognizing those needs, but not necessarily wanting the solution, is God's way of telling me, like, no, take this solution, because these needs are going to keep cropping up, and you can't keep ignoring them, even though I'm attempting to. I'm like, God, no. I know I wanted this in the past, but no. God is like, yes, my child. And boom, this need is going to hit you upside the head. It's going to smack you, make a noise too, so everybody knows that it just smacked you in the head. Right? That this is a need that you have. And so, I'm still being stubborn in this. But I do recognize it as, ooh, okay. If this happens, I very much know that it was a God ordained thing, because he's been telling me that this is what I need in my life this whole time. But I'm just like, I can tell it's him speaking, because it's not something that I would want for myself. Again, going back to my first example, there's a pattern here. Hope you're seeing that. It's that when we become more self-aware and learning about ourselves, we are better able to hear God's voice. I'll say it again. When we're more self-aware and when we learn more about ourselves, it is much easier to discern God's voice versus our own. And this is why healing is so important and knowing ourselves is so important. I'm going to always parrot that. Because once you do that, you really understand yourself and understand what your needs are. Like I've said previously, once you understand your needs, being able to actually fulfill those needs and knowing what you need to do to fulfill those needs actually comes much, much easier. And I also think this is why, especially when it comes to just trying to navigate life, as a young adult, especially in your 20s, is so difficult. Just because by default, being younger and just now being, fresh on the adult scene, you're going to be confused just by virtue of not having the life experience that comes with, going through certain issues that kind of highlight the places in your life where, holes exist. You don't know what you don't know, essentially. It's really hard to be able to help yourself and really be able to fulfill your needs if you don't know they're there in the first place. And so that's just one of those things where it's like, oh, the interesting thing about growing up. And so I do think that if you're one of those people that has been like me, it was just like, how are these people hearing from God? Like, Like, are you sure about that? Like, how did you just, how does one just hear from God? And I honestly believe if it wasn't for me doing inner work, hearing from God would still be something that was really, really difficult for me. Because right now it's, I won't say that it's the easiest thing all the time, but I'm very much able to more readily recognize, oh, that's not me, that was God, and therefore I am on the right track. Because that is one of my things now too, is just I really want to make sure that my time is well accounted for. I don't want to spend too much time outside of my purpose, and outside of God's will for my life. Simply because, one, I'm just very excited about life in general. I want to get to where I'm going. I was put on earth for a reason. You were put on earth for a reason, and I don't know about you, but I want to fully embrace and fully walk in whatever that reason is. So I always want to know how the ways that I need to pivot and make sure that I'm fulfilling that purpose. And again, the best way to do that is through self-awareness, through learning yourself, and it'll just become like night and day sometimes, and so hopefully that this message helps someone when it comes to really being able to hear from God. It's one of those things where, like I said, if you grew up in the church like me, you probably didn't learn how to actually hear from God. It was just one of those things that seemed like the most, well put together, most spiritual person in the room was just able to, put out their God antennas, their invisible God antennas, and then bam, they were able to hear from God. And you weren't, because you weren't spiritual enough. That's what it felt like. And that's, that's just really not the case. It's actually much more simple, in order to, and this is like when it comes to communication in general, it actually shouldn't be that, it probably shouldn't be as complicated as we make it. When it comes to communication, clarity is what allows for communication. When you know everything about a situation at hand, when you have all the facts, then communication becomes much more seamless. When it's, at least in theory, that's how communication is supposed to work. I admit, things do get kind of weird sometimes. But when it comes down to it, like I said, once you actually are anchored in who you are as a person, once you know more about yourself as a person, communication in general will just start to become much more free-flowing, much more easier to understand, digest, and the source of that information becomes much more apparent. So again, I will attempt to, like I started saying, I hope this helps someone. And then I went on my Baptist rant, which means I just started talking again. But anyway, hopefully this helps somebody out there when it comes to hearing from God. Let me know in the comments the ways in which you actually hear from God or have heard from God. Notice I didn't mention prayer or anything like that. For me, like I said, I'm just a person living my life. Even though some of it came from a Christian perspective, God is for everyone. And that's why I kind of intentionally worded the way I did. That's not to say that you wouldn't hear God through prayer. But there's a lot of ways that God speaks to us. And I wanted to make sure that I kind of covered some bases that don't always get covered when it comes to these sort of topics. So thank you so much for listening to me. Have a great morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time it is for you right now. It's evening for me. So another good evening to those who may be watching in the evening. Hello. Make sure you subscribe. Please subscribe. Make sure you get on my email list below. Please do so, because I have some courses coming down the hatch. And I'll always have courses. I'll have courses on a rolling and regular basis. But I do have one coming out in June of 2023. It is a pre-dating course. The title is yet to be known at this time, but I will let you all know as soon as possible. And then I have another course, my winning womanhood course, that I designed because I realized that so many women are really hurting, and that, once we got thrust into adulthood or womanhood, because adulthood for us is womanhood, you realize that there's a lot of things that you didn't know about growing up, about quote unquote adulting, about interpersonal relationships. So a lot of that I'm going to cover. It's essentially, how to be a young adult, not even young adult, just adult, how to be a woman. It's essentially the class in adulthood that you wish you would have gotten that you never did. So that is what my winning womanhood course is. And please sign up on my mailing list. Sign up on my mailing list below to get info on when that is coming up. And also make sure that you follow me on my Instagram as well. My Instagram is I am Bliss Alexandria. I am Bliss Alexandria is my Instagram handle. So yeah, do all the things. They're down there below. Do all the things. And so yeah, until next time, thank you so much for watching. Love you all. And yeah, that is all.